Welcome to the Business to Grow Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world to share their insight and expertise so we can all grow together. I am your host, Heidi Schalk, and the co-founder of the Spotlight to Scale Accelerator, where we help businesses drive revenue by making sure they're seen as the go-to authority and expert in their field versus just another product or service. And today I'm excited to bring to you my special guest, a woman of amazingness. We've been chatting behind the scenes, and I'm excited to bring her to the stage today. Elizabeth Lewis with Elizabeth Lewis Consulting. Welcome, Elizabeth, to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Heidi.
I'm so excited to chat with you. Do you mind jumpstarting our conversation with sharing a little bit about you, Elizabeth, who you are, your company, your business, and your role within it?
Absolutely. Who am I? Such a funny question. How do we answer that? I'm someone who's obsessed with learning and being my absolute best. I believe in Jesus, and I believe in just being as honest as I possibly can, which is just rare in today's world, if we can be honest. Professionally, I run it's E. Lewis International officially, but Elizabeth Lewis Consulting. And I work with high performers, usually in the STEM fields, whether they be entrepreneurs or executives. And I really help them break free from toxic mindsets and increase their impact, their leadership, and their communication, as well as really getting that business plan implemented so that they're able to execute because business plans don't execute themselves. And
No.
so many times people spend time doing it. And I'm the founder of the company, so it's been real fun, real joy, real headaches at time too, right? That's the joy of business.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you share with us what inspired you to start in helping people? And I'm really curious about what toxic mindset is. I haven't heard that term.
What inspired me? It kind of fell in my lap. I had my first business when I was 13.
Oh,
So
wow.
I just very much get business. I very much get entrepreneurs. I very much get executives. I get their issues. I have clinical psychology training. I've got 2 graduate degrees. I kind of became the therapist when I was 8 years old in my family.
Mm.
So it probably just was a comfortable role. I also have this really weird gift of where I can talk with someone for about 10 minutes and I can tell them every single wrong mindset or negative route that they have in their mental real estate and that needs to go for them to reach their fullest potential.
Wow. So 13, what was your first business at 13?
At the time, ribbon belts were really popular in
Mm.
my neck of the woods. And so I made ribbon belts and I sold them and I got into stores.
Wow.
My mom was not very entrepreneurial, so that's where it ended. Then I became a professional model. And so it just kind of, kept going. I was all like, why do I have to wait to be an adult to work? Because I grew up watching Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen, as
Yeah.
babies on Full House. I'm like, that's not fair. I want to do this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have two MBAs, you said, correct?
2 masters, not
Two
MBAs.
masters. So you're let the you said you love to learn, and that's so true. So can you share with us, take us into what you shared about toxic mindset? You help, entrepreneurs and business leaders overcome toxic mindset. What does that mean? What is toxic mindset? I've never heard that.
Absolutely. So you could have a negative mindset, you could have a toxic mindset. Toxic
Mhm.
mindsets are going to be perfectionism, assuming it's maladaptive. Some careers do need to have a very real perfection level at the end of the day, right? Like a surgeon, you don't want them to be imperfect in that field. But most people have a toxic mindset with perfectionism being more maladaptive. Fear's maladaptive mindset at the end of the day. So toxic mindsets are anything, it's like a weed in a beautiful garden. It's going to suck the life out of the actual plants, the ones that you want to grow. And so you've got to pull them out. But most people's weeds are so rooted down because it's going to stem from childhood, unfortunately. I mean,
Right.
it's real. And then what happens is those roots kind of tangle with other weeds. And so it can take some time to untangle the weeds, almost like tangled jewelry. And so once
Ah,
you get it free, then the goal isn't to actually remove the weed because the brain works best by addition, not subtraction. And it's the same with real gardening. You don't just take the weed out if you want to have a beautiful garden. You have to put in the nutrients that the soil is missing. And when the soil has its nutrients, it will go away. And the soil will tell you what nutrients are missing. And it's the same with our mindsets. You can listen to somebody's words if you have a good ear, and you can 100% tell them what their issues are in life based off of their word choice.
Yeah, this is the second time today that I've heard that how important listening is. And many times in the world of leadership and entrepreneurship, we're not listening enough. We're always worried about what we're going to say when they're finished talking, or we're worried about like we're listening to talk next, right? So yeah, listening is super important, and I love that you shared like it's also can be like tangled jewelry. So if you're a woman listening, you know what that's like because if you've had some tangled chains, they are not easy to untangle for sure. There is a method. Yeah. I love that. So, Elizabeth, you specialize in helping high performers unlock their potential. What are some of the biggest mental blocks that you've seen that hold leaders back?
Well, the leaders that I work with, it can be a variety of things, but you'll usually see some level of perfectionism, which really is just a coping mechanism. That means there's more serious toxic mindset, we could argue, which is a rejection mindset. Not the fear of rejection, a rejection mindset. It is different, unfortunately. You see a lot of fear of man in leaders. This is where they believe they need to jump through hoops, befriend people to get ahead, please people. You'll see a lot of that. And you can also see fear of poverty, right? Like it doesn't matter how much money they have. It's like, it's not enough. Another thing you'll see is inferiority complex. I call it the unlovingness mindset, and that can manifest multiple ways, but usually it's going to be filled with self-hatred, self-rejection, just lots of condemning thoughts, a lot like just really, you're going to have more negative thoughts in the inferiority complex at the end of the day. Sometimes it also comes about from being victimized. But I do psychometric testing, and I've been doing psychometric testing for over 10 years now. And the thing that blew me away when I started working with high performers is how I would say 96% of them have terrible self-confidence, have terrible self-esteem. And you
Wow.
have to heal your breaches in relationship with yourself, with others, and with God.
Mm.
And a lot of the foundation I do with my entrepreneurs and my executives is restoring their breach in relationship with themselves. And as you know, obviously the world's a little bit different with parenting, but the people I'm working with, usually they're either baby boomers or they were raised by baby boomers. And so it was a different culture of where you're seen, you're not heard. And so
Mm.
sometimes it's really taking some time not to necessarily process the trauma because that's usually been processed, but to learn like, what do I do with this? Like, what's the last step in kind of getting rid of some of this crap that is, taking up all of my mental real estate.
Yeah. So you mentioned perfectionism, and I will share with you, I'm a recovering perfectionist, which is, yeah, I'm a recovering perfectionist. I'd say it all the time. And you would see it when my children were young in their birthday parties. Like I went all out, and it all had to be perfect. And I'm like, perfect for who? At the end of the day, they remember certain things, and that's it. And I brought that into my business, and I've learned how to let that go. And now I'm like, now I learned from a mentor of mine that messy makes me millions, right? And to learn how to have fun and see when perfectionism is holding me back, and also learn to be have fun with the messiness. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. It gets to be natural. And and at the end of the day, if it's not the right direction, it's okay. We're just gonna change gears and go the other and try something different. So what are some things that you've seen that you do to help people? Like what would be a process to help leaders with both the you mentioned perfectionism, and what was the other thing that you mentioned? Self-sabotage. What are some of the things that you help them with to move through that process of overcoming self-sabotage and or perfectionism?
Well, that question kind of sets it up in the sense of I'm isolating them. I don't isolate because that's not realistic. When you're
Okay.
struggling with perfectionism, you're also struggling with self-sabotage most likely for
Yeah.
your situation, right? So my clients come to me because they want to understand why do they do what they do. That's very important for my clients. They're
Mm.
really wanting to understand the why. So I take them through you could say Liz's boot camp assessment, or I call it a needs analysis, and I give them 4 to 5 assessments. They can do them all within I think 20 minutes. I have one assessment that's just insanely accurate and takes 5 minutes to do. So I've done my best to make sure that they they don't take a lot of time. And our very first session is called a needs analysis. It can be a 2 hour session. I don't believe in time. I believe in transformation, and I don't also believe in behavior modification because it's a bunch of BS. I believe in heart change at the end of the day, and that's a different approach. And so in the needs analysis, I go over 23 psychometrics with them.
Hmm.
And I pretty much cover every single stone I possibly can find. And they are usually amazed at how well I know them, that they tell me that they feel a little naked and exposed by the end of our session. And the reason the session lasts 2 hours is because as I share these insights, these deep uncovered things that the average person wouldn't know unless they've been trained in it or have that ear, um, they make so many connections. And that's
Hmm.
why the session is so long because they're like, oh, that's why I did this, this, and this. And that right there gives them very clear and specific areas for them to work on because that session really grows their self-awareness. And that self-awareness is so important if you're going to make effective change. So now they have awareness, they have education, and they have the verbiage to attach to it. And then following sessions, we'll kind of isolate it a little bit more of where we'll work on one or the other. But we don't, I don't ever have a session that's like, okay, we're going to work on your perfectionism. That's not life. That's not realistic. It's more like,
Right.
what are you dealing with today? Because your perfectionistic issues are in that. And I
Okay.
need to teach you how to, I don't want them to stay with me. I want them to be done after 8 sessions, go on, do your own thing, because the change can happen really quickly if you understand neuroplasticity and you understand neuropsychology at the end of the day. And so we're trying to teach them how to coach themselves, how to grow their awareness, how to think differently so that they're able to get different results at the end of the day. And it's crazy how quick it'll happen.
I love hearing that it's fast. Like you're not wanting, you just said that you don't want to keep people there just to keep people in there. You want them to get their results that they came to you for and then move on and create the success that they're wanting to create, which is fantastic. Because otherwise, like, there's some people out there that it's just like it's continuous and you never feel like you're getting to that end of the rainbow. And you talked about fear, you brought up fear. So what is, and you also in your coaching and through your content, you talk about fear being a growth opportunity. So how can leaders shift their relationship with fear to feeling successful rather than it holding them back?
I don't know where I've talked about fear being a growth thing on my content,
Oh,
to be honest. I don't agree with a lot of people's opinions of fear.
okay.
At the end of the day, fear is going to be more psychological and you psyching yourself out than anything. Especially, and it's like, what type of fear, right? There's so many different types of fear. So how is it manifesting at the end of the day? Um, you can have a spirit of fear, or you can have a biological reaction of fear, right? Biological, sure, we're going to keep that. You see a bear, please don't be an idiot, right? Like take the correct protocol. You're worried about some situation that hasn't come to play yet, or like I'll tell you a personal one.
Okay.
I'm on a kind of a stint for the next 93 days, and I was journaling. And I was talking with God, and I was like kind of catastrophizing and freaking out, right? Because I mean, I still do this stuff. I'm not perfect. And God was just like, Liz, you're acting like 93 days is going to happen in the next second. Like, calm your horses down. And it's true, right? That's where you psych yourself out. At the end of the day, you have to learn how to fight through fear because fear and faith are equal in substance. Fear represents the future, faith represents the future. Fear represents what you don't want to see happen in the future, faith represents what you do want to see happen in the future. We have proven now in neuroscience and neuropsychology that we work to create our most dominant thoughts. Funny thing, Bible says the same thing. Interesting. So if you start meditating on fear, you'll create fear. If you start meditating on faith, you'll create more of your ideal situation. And so it's more so learning to be strong, be bold, courageous, and move forward anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you just said. And you broke down the fear versus faith and meditating on fear versus faith, which is true. When we live in fear, what happens? We create it. And I for one know that I've created in things in my life because I focused on the fear of it happening and it completely happened. Where if I focused on the opposite result, I'm sure that would have happened looking back in hindsight. So
Sabotage.
what are some of the key psychological traits that top performing teams, and how can leaders cultivate them within their own organizations?
Well, right now we're learning the power of adaptability,
Mm.
and we're going to adaptability and flexibility are slightly different, very nuanced at the end of the day. The other thing is humility. I don't think that's a trait that's really growing very popular, unfortunately, anymore. And then it's empathy. It's really more of the EQ. It's the emotional intelligence at the end of the day. It's making sure your pride is out of the room so you see that person and you're like, oh, you know what? They're better skilled for that. If you want to have a high performing team, you really need to look at the best champion teams in sports. Not the ones that are like, oh, it's a family, more it's a team, right? You're selecting the best of the best to work together and you have respect for each other
Mhm.
and you interact in a way where you know your spot, you know your position, you know, like, you know what, Fred's better for that. Why don't you go to Fred? Because he's going to take it to the next level, right? Like if you look at Michael Jordan in the sense, people knew, okay, you can do the finishing shot, or you can score this, right? Or any, you know, sports person at the end of the day. And it's the same thing. It's understanding whose strengths, whose weaknesses, where do we put it, and then really learning how to listen. But a lot of high performing teams that are successful are doing the personal development work individually. And so many leaders think that leadership is something you do when that is couldn't be further from the truth. Leadership is something you become. If you're a leader, that means you've done the work, you've done the personal development, you've gotten rid of the toxic things inside of you that's going to prevent your success or going to make you bitter or jealous because, you know, someone's doing something that you don't like. It's really learning how to be unwavering in the face of a lion.
Mm. I love so much that you said there. Can you share with us what would be one example, or can you give a mindset shift that could immediately help a business leader accelerate their growth? And what would, if you could, what would that be?
Oh gosh, you know, I don't believe in one size fits all. It's
Okay.
also nuanced. At the end of the day, hire someone who can mirror all your BS and lies to you and can keep you accountable. It's lonely at the top. I think we
Yeah.
know that by now. And there's a lot of yes people the higher you get to want to please you. You need somebody who's going to tell you what you do not want to hear because denial is very powerful. It's one of the most powerful coping mechanisms the human has.
Yeah, I'm going back to what you said before about leaders being and becoming what they need versus just like hoping that their team will pull it together. And I think that's so, so true. Everything
Yeah.
starts at the top. And I've talked to a number of people on this podcast, and I'm so grateful that you're one of them. So thank you for being a yes for being here. And one thing I've heard is the power of culture inside of a company and how important that is for the success of the company. At the end of the day, yes, they need to be generating revenue, right? Which comes with creating clients and customers. But that starts from within and creating a culture of support. And that support starts from the leadership at the top and letting people know that you have that open door policy, that you're doing the work yourself, right? We're all growing together. And so I thought that was like a really that's a big takeaway from me anyway. And I really wanted to highlight that for our listeners, in case, hoping that's a big takeaway for them as well. Can you share, Elizabeth, who is your ideal client? So if somebody's listening to you right now and they're like, oh, I'd really love to learn more about what she does and who do you help? Who would be the right person to be reaching out to you?
Absolutely. If you're tired of negative thinking, if you want to be more positive or more optimistic, that would be a good fit. If you feel like a lot of my executives feel like they've kind of hit the top of the success ladder for them and like, okay, well, what's next? I got all this life. So
Mhm.
if you're feeling stuck either mentally or in your career, that's an awesome opportunity to come. But honestly, you don't need a reason. At the end of the day, if you just want to be your best self, have someone help you. And it doesn't have to be a coach, it doesn't have to be a therapist. It can be your best friend, is what the literature says at the end of the day. Just find someone that's going to hold you accountable and call you out on your BS.
And that's the important key. And for you listening, that was gold nugget right there from Elizabeth, amongst everything else she shared today. Know that when you're bringing in somebody that's going to hold you accountable, that you trust them, that they're going to call you out on your BS. That is super important. If it's your sister and you're, for example, and I always go to this example, if you're wanting to get healthy, right? And you're making a commitment to go walk every day with your sister, and you're like, I'm just too tired today. And your sister's like, okay, no problem. We'll do it tomorrow. That's not your accountability partner, right? That's not the person that you need to be bringing on your team. And it's that great that your sister loves you and vice versa, but you need somebody that's going to call you out and go, nope, you don't get to do that. What's your goal? Why are you doing this? And let's get going. And that's a key takeaway. So if you are tired of being where you are and you want to see what your next level is and you're ready for it, then reach out to Liz. And we're going to find out how you can reach out to her in a few minutes. But first, Elizabeth, I'd love to go into growth, if that's okay with you. What are some challenges that you've seen in the growth of in evolution of your company and your business, and how did you overcome them?
Hmm. Well, this is going to sound prideful, and I definitely don't mean it that way, but I'm just owning it. Um, I mean, I'm smart, sure, but I'm not like a genius in the sense of how the world defines it. And I struggled with some internal, I guess, like not if I was worthy, but like, oh, can I play ball with them? Because a lot of my clients, when I first started, were like freakishly smart. Like they were so smart that I was like, oh crap. I don't know if I can play ball with you because they were like, understood like astrophysics at 8 years old. And I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, understand that, right? Or they've got PhDs in physics or, these PhDs in these career fields that I'm like, oh, that's you're very good at math. And typically
Right.
we equate high intellect with math nowadays. So that was a like, okay, all right. Because I guess a backstory, I was told I was stupid, fat, and ugly every single day of my life. And so
Oh,
then to
wow.
be faced with these like, high performers at a very high level and working with Fortune 10 and Fortune 50 companies and these executives, I was like, yeah, we can do this. Crap, right? Um, but I just learned how to show up and be myself, and I started, getting good feedback, which is great. And so that was helpful. And then I had an associate coach and training her to kind of uh, facilitate my style. Not that it had my framework would probably be a better verbiage
Mhm.
there. That was interesting and a little bit of a challenge because you're not wanting to take away someone's style because coaching is very much a style. Consulting, there's a style. But then if you have a proven framework, like trying to merge the two was a little difficult in the sense of I just had a full roster and she had a full roster. So sometimes just finding the time in our schedules to make sure we're in alignment,
Yeah.
sometimes that can be very challenging with your people because sometimes our people aren't getting the time that they need from us because our schedules are so busy. And so finding ways to slow down so that you can make sure training is there, you can make sure their needs are there, right? And people forget sometimes you do need to deconstruct so you can reconstruct faster and better in the future.
Yeah, the breakdowns create our breakthroughs, right? So and that happens in everywhere in life, relationships, business, and sometimes those business need to break down in order to rebuild, quote unquote, in order to get to where you want to go and create the success that you want to create. So I really like that you shared that because I think that's important. Some people can look at that as a failure and it's not. It's a learning curve and it's a growth curve, right? It's a growth step. Question for you. So what has worked for you as far as building your business? Like when it comes to marketing, visibility, there's so many things out there, so many options, and we can throw spaghetti at the wall at 50 different things right now when it comes to building a business, especially online. So what are some of the things that you're like, you know what, we're doubling down on this marketing strategy in 2025, or this has really worked for us and we're going to keep this going and grow this specific strategy?
I'm an online business. So one thing I've learned, and I think I learned the hard way probably about online businesses is you're really kind of at the mercy of like the online culture. I don't even know a word to encompass it all, to be completely honest. So one thing I've learned is one strategy will work for a season, right? Maybe that season's a year, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 3 years. But if you aren't paying attention to the shifts and I mean, like direct messaging, right? That especially on LinkedIn. I think if you're on LinkedIn, like you are probably getting at least 4 direct messages a day about someone selling you something. And a few years ago, it was fine. Now it's like, please go away, right? Like
Mhm.
the dance is up. So I think it's learning how to always evolve at the same time, just like all businesses and people do. Right now, 2025, my team and I, we are doubling down on digital marketing, on really focusing on products and digital products, because there's just one of me, and so I obviously can't be in everyone's room at once. And so really creating more of a mastermind collaborations and more online courses to
Mhm.
continue that are affordable. Because the one thing that really started to break my heart last year is when you sell your time, obviously you become a little bit more expensive than the average Joe, especially if you have a high success rate. And we have a 99.8% success rate in getting you a transformation, getting you to your goals. And so I really hated that there were so many people who couldn't afford me, but really, really wanted help. And I'm the type of person like I believe in pro bono work. I believe in giving back. I'm a big believer in that. And so being able to give people the exact framework, literally everything that I give my one-on-one clients to be like, here, take this and run, and them to get a transformation. That's what we're really focusing on because I think, the world is so negative
Yeah.
and people don't realize it. Going back to toxic mindsets, but negativity is a billion-dollar industry in the workforce. It takes billions. Negativity is a cancer for your company. You can't afford to have it at the end of the day. But a lot of people say I don't have time not to do it because unfortunately we have put profit over people in America.
Yeah. I'm hoping that's shifting, Elizabeth. I'm hoping that's starting to shift, especially with you, people like you, who are in integrity and really want to serve and make like create that ripple effect that turns into a massive wave and makes a big change in the world. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are trying to do it. It's just a matter of us keep doing it. Like if you're out there and you're one of the people like Elizabeth who want to create this change, keep doing it. Don't stop, because people need you. And I think that's another thing that happens in entrepreneurship and building businesses. Like we give up before we hit that pinnacle of like right when we're about to hit success, people walk away. And so just knowing, like I like that you shared that, like just wanting to have that passion, that why that drives you is really, really important. If I could give you a magic wand right now and you could wave it on one issue or challenge that you're having and like poof, it goes away, what would that be and why?
So I think let me say it this way. The magic wand I would want is to just be more to be abiding more with God. I don't want to chase emptiness personally. And a lot of business chases emptiness at the end of the day. It just is, right? And no harm, no foul. Do each to each their own. I'm not here to smack anybody with Jesus. But just to have more trust in the unknowns, to have more peace, and to really prioritize what matters versus what society tells me that matters, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. And you brought up, it reminded me of a conversation I had earlier today with a gentleman, and he was like, I was like, what's like one thing that you see that's happening in your industry, or a couple things? And he goes, that you'd like to change. He goes, there's so many people that are putting sales above serving.
Right.
And just like you mentioned around LinkedIn, like you're getting bombarded. And back in the day, it was okay. And I've just recently gone full in on LinkedIn and I see it. And we don't do that. Like I'm hardly messaging anybody. I'm like, well, if we're going to connect, we're going to connect in a real way. We're not going to connect. And if it leads to something great, if
Right.
not, I want to refer you, you refer me. We'll see how we can build this relationship going forward. But at the end of the day, it's going to work out. We're going to trust that this is going to work out in some way. But as long as we're serving, selling is serving, right? And that's
Yeah,
where
it
I
can
think
be.
that, yes, it should be. And when you're serving someone, whether they buy from you or not, they're getting a conversation with you, they're getting a relationship building, and they may know somebody that needs you. They may not need you, but you don't lead with selling, right? You don't even know if they have the problem that you're trying to solve. You don't even know if they have that problem yet. So that was, yes, that was so good. So Elizabeth, we could revisit this conversation in a year. If we can come back again, this is a newer podcast, so I'm grateful for your time. If we could bring you back in a year and kind of see where you are now and where you are then, what would success look like for you?
Doing God's will for my life.
Mm. Is there a way to know what that looks like? I'm looking at it, and I'm not analytical by any means, but now I'm gonna putting my analytical hat on. How do you gauge that?
Well, the Bible says that his sheep know his voice and it's staying abiding in him and doing what he wants. There's a specific will that like individual believers have
Mm.
that will carry out that also impacts the kingdom of God. And then there's the general will at the end of the day too. And to just be stronger in what God's asking me to do and where he's taking me at the end of the day. A lot of people are struggling, hopefully the
Yeah,
world will shift for profit becoming secondary versus people, but life is becoming extremely expensive in America and people
it
are
is.
hurting. I researched yesterday. I don't know why, I just like research so much. I just love learning. Like 16% of suicides every year are because of finances. And so it's like, I hope that number decreases. And so for me, I don't really care to make money. I care to help people know that they are loved, they are a child of God, and there is a more excellent way of doing things than most likely they are. because, you know, God's our provider, not whomever is going to pay you that moment.
And I love that. What I'm hearing from that is trust. And that's a word that I've learned over the past, I think, couple years, really in the past few months myself, learning how to trust myself in the moment and knowing that I'm good at making decisions.
Yeah.
And that the money will always be there type of thing. Like serve first and the money God will always provide for you. Universe will always provide for you. Whatever you believe in, depending on who's listening, what your belief is, but just trusting that we've you've been I want to say it this way, but it's not going to make sense. You've been gotten. Does that make sense? Like it's got you, God's got you, universe got you. Like just trusting and keep moving forward, and at the end of the day, everything's working out for us versus to us. And I think
Yeah, at the
that's
end of the
important.
day, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off
No,
there,
go
but
ahead, go
at the end
ahead,
of
go
the
ahead.
day, life usually works out way better than we sometimes realize.
Yeah, I think
Like
we
how many
we
times have you
we
freaked out?
yeah, sometimes our vision is so blocked in a box. And if we would just let go of that box and release the four sides around it, or the three sides, yeah, the four sides around it, and just be like, okay, what's possible? There's so much greatness that could happen that we're limiting ourselves to so much less than what's possible for us. I love that you said that because that you shine the light on so much right there. Like, yeah, don't hold yourself to this box of I just want to do this because there's so many more possibilities. And if you're opening yourself up to those, there's so much world out there for you and there's so much abundance out there for you. And it looks like so many different ways, so many different things. And it doesn't always have to be just, millions in your bank account. Like money doesn't necessarily bring happiness, but it makes things a little easier. And it also provides you the opportunity to give back so much bigger. But again, when it comes to sales and creating that money, serving first really, really matters in my opinion. And I go back to what you shared about LinkedIn. That was big because again, we are getting bombarded. Don't be one of those people.
Well, I mean, you got it, but if you can't say blanket statements like that because if God's telling you to do it, then like
That's
don't be
true.
so
That's true.
righteous,
But
right? I mean,
that's true. There's ways of doing it though. There's ways of doing it.
it's like direct marketing. It's
Yeah.
never going to end.
Yeah.
It's just going
That's
to
true. It's never
shift
going to end.
at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah. But there's a lot of people out there that feel like, oh, I don't want to be that person because it feels salesy or slimy. Do what's right for you, right? You've got to find the marketing. You've got to find the ways that work for you. And I'm so glad to have you. How can people reach out to you to get support from you or learn more about what you do?
Absolutely. You can go to Elizabeth Lewis, LOUIS.com. You can email me at info@elizabethlewislouis.com. All my social media handles are the same. I'm on, I think, every platform, every major platform. Is that a
Yeah.
thing we say now? And it's at I am Liz Lewis, Louis. I spell my last name like Joe Louis the boxer, if you're familiar with him
Yeah.
from like the
Awesome.
40s.
Well, thank you. And we have all of Elizabeth's contact information in the show notes. So if you are watching us on YouTube, then please subscribe and leave a comment for Elizabeth below. If you are listening to us on your favorite platform like Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or any of the other ones, please, and you can leave a review. We would love for you to do so if you feel called to do so, because it helps us send Elizabeth's information for her knowledge, her experience out to help and serve more people. And it helps us to reach more people too with all of our guests. So we'd be highly grateful. And if you feel like Elizabeth's message today would support somebody whether in business or personally, please share this episode with them so we can share her with more people. Elizabeth, is there anything that you'd like to share before we wrap that I didn't get to ask you or we didn't touch on?
The only thing I'll say is don't let the fear or perfectionism paralyze you. You learn more by doing than
Mhm.
sitting still.
So good. And as a recovering perfectionist, that is so true. I can tell you by personal experience, go do it scared, have fun with it, laugh at yourself. Don't worry about what people think about you. It's a lot there, right?
Yeah, and to add to that, just really quickly, because I don't know if you struggle with this with perfectionism, but there's a correlation sometimes. See the money as a tool, as seed money, because you need to plant something for something to grow. And so many people are trying to create a business, but they're not planting any seeds because they're hoarding their money. Money is meant to stay in motion,
Yeah,
not sit in your bank
absolutely.
account.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to move. If you want
Mhm.
more to come in, it's like it's energy, right? And you got to let it go in order for it to come back. And if you're holding on to it, then there's no money coming in because you're so tight. And if you're watching us on YouTube, I've learned this, and I'm not going to say it right, but when we're gripping with our fists closed, we're not allowing, right? We're not allowing anything to come in. But when you release and let go, you allow the flow.
Well, think if your money was seeds. If you were a farmer, you would not be
Yeah.
keeping your seeds in
So
storage.
good.
You'd be
Yes.
planting those babies and you'd be like, grow, grow, grow. Maybe you'd be reading a bed stories. Money's the same thing. Money is
Yeah.
seed.
Absolutely. So good. This has been so amazing. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time. I appreciate you. And thank you for listening to us on the Business Growth Spotlight podcast with Elizabeth and I today. If you're looking to grow your visibility and you're feeling like you're stuck and you're throwing spaghetti at the wall and you're trying all the things and nothing seems to be getting you anywhere, then go ahead and go download our free Spotlight to Scale blueprint. You can go to spotlighttoscale.com/blueprint. It's free. It's yours. Go take it and run. Elizabeth, thank you so much. Go to her website because she's got some freebies there for you. You want to make sure that you grab. You want to talk about those real quick?
Yeah, so since a lot of people have negative thoughts, and this is terrifying, 95% of our thoughts are the same every single day, like get a new thought. And of those thoughts, 80% are negative for the average person. I have a 5-minute assessment that will score you in the 17 most common thinking traps or cognitive distortions. And the higher you score, the more prone you are. And there's a 25-page breakdown of each thinking trap with examples and just further education.
Perfect. Go do it. It's 5 minutes, 5 minutes of your time, and you're going to create massive transformation and get a lot of knowledge and feedback from that. So, thank you, Elizabeth, again for being on the show. Thank you for listening to the Business Growth Spotlight podcast with Elizabeth and I today. We will see you on the next episode.